in Weymouth, in the landing actually, and I have a number of questions. So the first question is, the situation at the north parcel is very similar to a situation in Chesapeake, Virginia, where the Sierra Club has argued that the arsenic and other toxins from coal ash were leaking into the river and violated the Federal Clean Water Act. Both sites have never been capped. Both sites are subject to intrusion by salt water. This will be further exacerbated by projected sea level rise, as Frank Singleton had spoken about. How are you going to address this issue? The second thing is, although your slide talks about a 10-foot deep bore, we have the geotechnical stuff where the 16 feet borings, and they are showing oil contamination at 16 feet. These borings are below sea level, which would cause concern for movement into the Fore River. Have you considered this issue, and how are you planning to address it? The EA, or environmental assessment, noted that dust control by spraying of water on the site during construction. That will send arsenic and coal ash through the outfall drain into the Fore River and Quincy Bay. What is the level of contamination containment in this type of a process? Any disruptions of the soil by heavy construction equipment will send arsenic, coal ash, heavy metals, and petroleum pollutants into the recreational beaches of the Fore River and Kings Cove. What methods do you intend to use to prevent this? How do you evaluate the level of contamination containment? I mean, I see that as a real problem, and it's not, again, this draft report, and if we're commenting on that, I know we're not bothering. But I have one other comment. Ms. Race, you were at both the April 6th and May 25th Weymouth Conservation Commission meetings. The evidence of release of fuel oil was discovered in April of 2016 during geotechnical drilling, page 2.2. Why did no one bring this to the attention of the Conservation Commission at the time and request to withdraw the application in light of, at this time, of this information, especially if TRC is supposed to be unbiased? This is what gives me trust issues.
Hi, I'm Carol Madigan. I'm a resident of North Weymouth. And I have a question which I'm hoping you can answer here tonight, because you introduced yourself as an LSP, and you also spoke about that in 1993, DEP, privatized it. And so I'm just trying to understand, when they privatized it, does it always mean that the study is done by the agency that's part of the project that's being undertaken? I know that this is true in this instance. Do companies such as Enbridge to deal with the perception of conflict of interest ever refer to outside independent LSPs to deal with this whole this conflict of interest? And does, so I'm just trying to understand the parameters of when is it done by somebody like yourself who's employed by the energy company that is subject of making this PFP, and when is it done by somebody outside of that, of the energy company?
Well, with the privatized program, the LSP is the one who is, and I want to say I'm acting as DEP, but we are licensed as an extension to actually follow the regulations that DEP put in place. So from that standpoint, we are independent, providing independent answers and making sure that we follow the regulations that DEP set out.
Is it ever done by somebody outside of an independent person who's not, we were just trying to understand this. Does DEP ever say, this is such that it needs to be done by somebody who's not?
An LSP?
No, an LSP who's not employed by the energy company, and these, they're being paid by somebody who truly is independent.
I can respond. We'll respond in writing on that. It might be a little bit easier if I actually give you specific legislation and why it was set up this way and how the LSP program works.
So you have to tell me if it's ever done by somebody who's completely
An
independent.
LSP is the only one that actually signs and stamps documents for the MCP compliance part of things. So if you're not an LSP,
No, I
you cannot
understand.
hold yourself out.
I understand it must be an LSP. I just don't know if there's an LSP that is independent of Enbridge.
Well, there's lots of LSPs out there. There's probably 450 LSPs.
So it could be done by somebody who's not employed. This could be done by somebody, I'm just trying to understand by law, by the 1993 law, it can't be done by the Department of Environmental Protection.
DEP has certain sites that they actually oversee and manage. I think probably the best bet would be to contact Gerard Martin and specifically ask him what level of sites that DEP is involved in.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that's a comment that we can actually put in our response as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Kathy Bevins, I'm from North Weymouth as well. I have a couple questions. So glancing through this stuff, I see there's a lot of numbers of soil samples that we took, a lot of numbers of groundwater samples we took, and not a lot about exactly what's in there. And I guess, I know one gentleman read off some of the heavy metals and toxins involved with all the coal ash and whatnot that's in there, and several of us have tried to educate ourselves on these things over the last 2 years. As a side note, I too would like to see more expanded soil testing going on in a broader area because of what everybody's already said. But also in these reports, I would like to see a list of exactly the heavy metals and toxins that are in there. Boron, selenium, thallium, manganese, chromium, lead, cadmium, you know what I mean? And also, because we're not scientists and we're trying to learn, and you guys know all this stuff, what are the known repercussions of exposure to those specific toxins? We know what lead is, and we know there's lead in there, right? But it should be in these reports.
So tonight's was just a snapshot, and again, this
But this is the draft report that we have to respond to, right?
it's actually, it's a PIP plan for communication. So what you do from a response standpoint, from a communication standpoint, is you can say, we would like more information. There are a lot more reports on DEP's websites, and we will be presenting more reports. But this particular document for tonight only is how we are communicating and what communication would you like to see different.
I would like to see a list of all of the chemicals, toxins, and heavy metals that are on that site, be it from coal ash, oil, ASR, whatever that fuel additive is, broken down in specific detail and what the toxic nature of each of those is, because this is what we live with and we're going to be exposed to when they dig in there. In addition to us, I mean, the repercussions on fish and wildlife are well known, particularly as a result of the spill that happened that Alice was referring to. And I think for these reports and for our purposes, we should be entitled to that information because you all have it. I mean, and you refer to, just in your slideshow, petroleum, hydrocarbons, metals, among other analysis, and it goes into great detail on how many holes you drilled and how many samples you took. But I'm more interested in what you found specifically. What's in there? So that would be my question.
And a lot of the data is on DEP's website. Again, tonight was.
What is the purpose of the final PIP? Not to provide that information?
No, the final PIP is, so some of the things that where we are tonight on the final PIP is that you want a different repository. Again, this is communicating to the public.
Right.
You want to have meetings at different times, so we're looking for people to propose times.
Right.
If they want to have them at a different location, where that location would be.
And if we want more substantive information.
Right, we will provide that in DEP's website, provide a direct link, so that you just click on the link and have it all be right there. So the thing is with this information again, is how do you want us to communicate with you all?
So how do we find, if you're not going to provide it in your reporting, yeah, maybe a direct link to here's exactly where you can
That's
see
a great
exactly
comment.
the metal, you know what I mean? So we don't have
That's
to
a
go
great comment,
looking
put the link in.
if it's that level of detail that's also in English, so those of us who are not scientists can understand it. On the tier 1, tier 2 thing, it's my understanding that if there's one or more remedial actions required as part of an IRA, that's automatically a tier 1 requirement, and it says in this PowerPoint thing that there was an IRA in 2016 on this, so it seems like that would automatically require a tier 1 designation, so I know it was brought up before, so you'll address that in the responses. And maybe it's just me, but I'm not clear on the process. So this is a draft. You write down what we say today, we send our written comments, and we have till January 5th so we can think of it. And then by January 30th, right, the final PIP comes out.
Technically, we have 30 days to respond to comments, but I'd like to try to get it back to you sooner than later, so that's why we put
So that was
less than
the,
30 days.
so you made reference to future meetings a couple of times, so I'm trying to get the timeline in my head. So we, by January 5th, give you everything we can think of that we have questions about. Within about 30 days, you take all those things into consideration and issue the final. Is there a meeting or something in between? the
No,
comment
but
period and the final?
we do provide what's called a response to comments. So we take a lot of the comments that you heard tonight, and we would actually, we would respond to those and say, this is where you can find
Separately
this.
or before the final?
It goes in the final PIP.
So
So it's a
So we do
letter.
the comments.
Yep.
You do the final PIP, which includes answering our questions and providing, direction and outline.
If your name is on the mailing list,
we'll get
we
a
will
copy of
send you
that.
a copy of the response to comments.
So let's say that I read that final PIP, which includes the response, and I don't see an answer to 3 of the questions that I sent in there. What happens?
So the way the questions are is that DEP wants us to summarize the questions. So if there's 4 people that asked essentially the same question,
It's one question.
that would be one question that we would respond to.
But let's say that there's something that I wrote and it's not addressed, we go back to you? I mean, is there updated, or does that never happen, I suppose?
No, you could come back to me, you could also go back to DEP and Gerard Martin and send,
And the reference to the meetings you referred to, are there more meetings or something?
there will be. We haven't scoped out, part of our,
Where does that fall in the process?
after we issue the final PIP,
And what's the substance and purpose of those meetings?
it's actually to present a lot of technical information. So there's a lot of questions that come up tonight regarding the levels of contamination, where the contamination is, how deep the contamination, where the contamination is not. We have a lot of that information. But again, the purpose of tonight's meeting, we can only communicate, it's a communication plan.
You
All
gather
of that will be
information.
presented in a future meeting that will have a lot of data and a lot of information
And what's the
presented.
normal time frame from when that final PIP is done and when that or those meetings happen? Just generally.
The next meeting will probably be in February.
February? Okay. All right, I guess that's it for now. With regard to the social media thing, I know you said you do mailings and that kind of thing, but maybe if you could notify for these meetings and places
We
like.
actually are required by DEP to only do mailings to people's houses and then also provide public notice in newspapers.
Oh, so you can't notify the town or the
No,
Northland.
and it's because there's a lot of people that actually don't use social media, so,
I was
but that's a big
I was
comment.
thinking,
That's something
in
that-
addition to, you know what I mean, and not, don't stop doing the mailings to the people, but if in addition to, you could let the town know, so they could put it on their website, or.
Well, we actually sent
Sure,
letters,
sure.
we sent letters and public notice stuff to the town.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a quick follow-on question to the person, 2 people ahead of me. So Gerald Martin is the contact at the DEP for
Yes.
everything?
And I did talk to him, and he said if somebody has a concern, they should give him a call or email him.
Okay, so that's actually what my question is. So as an LSP, you're very aware of how an LSP gets selected for this process. What is the process for the DEP to not use an LSP, but for the DEP to do the work directly?
That's it's a little bit more detailed, so it'll be something that we would respond to.
In your responses, could you give details of how the citizens of the area can petition to have the DEP do the work and not have it be contracted out to a private firm?
You can put it up there. So we can respond to that comment, but would be something that you could directly mail to DEP.
Okay, and does the DEP oversee the scientific content of all of this work? Is there a particular contact, is it just Mr. Martin again?
He would be the best one, yes. And again, he said to have people reach out to him if they needed to.
And he's not here tonight, but he will be available to be contacted by email?
He said he would be.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jay Madigan. I live in North Weymouth. And I have two quick questions. The first one is, was there a separate meeting that you had with town and state officials to review the same thing? I just don't see, it's nice to see Becky Hart here. I just didn't know if there was another meeting that took place.
For the contamination, this is the first meeting
I know.
for the pit. This is the public involvement, so this is the first meeting to meet that requirement under the regulations.
The second question I have is in regard to, it seems like we're here to ask you questions, you get back information to us, then you write a final report. Who oversees all this? What's the governing body that would say, yes, you've done due diligence, you have done what you needed to do, it's a safe place, it's a good plan, and you're going to take care of it. Who is that?
The LSP.
The what?
The LSP,
Is that you?
yes.
We're screwed.
I'm Yvonne Lamothe, and I live in Quincy. I have a son that lives in House Neck. And my question is, are you giving the data on how far this pollution travels? Because just because there's lines of cities, when things fall apart, how far do they go? Are these other communities being brought in? Is the knowledge being sufficiently communicated to people outside of the boundary here? Because as we all know, after the fact is a little too late to address these things if we're not honest right now. As many things are coming out around us, you can hide things for so long, but when things, go amok, you can say you had it in your heart, but it's kind of too late. So I'm really concerned about that. Also, so that is my question. Who is going to be affected by this pollution if it's not taken care of right now? Because we need to get it out to other places. I found out about this by seeing the signs. I put some signs up just so other people could become aware, and somehow they disappear. Those signs seem to disappear. And I just feel like it hasn't been sufficiently publicized beyond the neighborhood here. Somewhat, but very little. Also, when I looked at that website, I'm wondering, among the officials noted on the website, where is our governor who's supposed to be concerned about people? Where is he? Could you tell me what his role is in this whole process?
We'll provide the process response.
So could you tell me something about how he relates to this big situation? What is does he have a concern for the people in Weymouth and beyond? What can you? I mean, this is like huge. And I don't see his picture there. Does he? Can you just tell me what his position is?
I actually, from the governor's standpoint, I don't know what his direct involvement is. I'm assuming that he is aware through town officials, but I don't work for the governor, so I don't know.
Okay, so I hope that when you publish your reports, you can expand to the surrounding communities, because it's not the line from Quincy to Hingham to Boston to the harbor. That line is not that far. And given climate change or climate chaos, and now people are ignoring it, certain people are pretending it doesn't exist, you need to have that report be more expansive.
Thank you. we're coming about at around 7:30. Happy to take a few more comments, but we would like to wrap this up and respect everyone's time. So I would say probably another 10, 15 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. Yes.
Okay, I'm from North Weymouth. First of all, the time of this meeting, notification for it was beyond bad, and seriously, most of us don't work in Weymouth. I work in Cambridge, so I actually canceled the 4 o'clock meeting so that I could get here to hear what has pretty much been useless. But that being stated, I want my questions on the record, so hopefully you'll answer them. What I keep hearing people saying is that they don't understand what your PAHs are and what the acceptable levels are. So in your answer, can you please provide what the levels are at the different ground levels, when that data was acquired, what your plan is once you disrupt the soil to keep it from getting into the water and into the air, because as a chemist, your polyaromatic hydrocarbons contain volatile organic hydrocarbons. So as soon as you release them from being trapped by the soil, they're now going to be being breathed by the people who live in this area. So what is your remediation plan to keep that from becoming VOHs instead of PAHs being contained in the soil? The other questions that people have concerns about that I'm hearing over and over again is, when you come back with your answers, if it brings up either secondary answers or we're not happy with your proposed solution, who do we contact? That's it.
I am back, because you don't seem to be willing to answer any questions except for the rest to do with the PIP. And so I'm going to address my comments to section 5.2, public comment periods. It says here that the comment periods for proposed response actions may be reduced or eliminated with DEP's review and concurrence if the nature of the hazard dictates that response actions be performed immediately. I presume, would you commit right now that the response actions do not need to be performed immediately? Because you in your presentation said it's stable, it's not moving. So there should be no need for the DEP to reduce or eliminate the comment periods for the scope of work, the remedial action plan, the remedy implementation plan, the IRA or RAM plans and complete statements, temporary or permanent solution statements, and activity and use limitations.
So I can provide a little bit more information on that, and then we'll actually respond more. Basically, the way the regulations are written, if there is a type of contamination, and it could be different types, so I don't want to qualify here, that needs to be addressed immediately before the public comment period is held or closes, DEP wants somebody out there immediately. So the way these PIP regulations are is you have to provide comment, you have to present it, and then you provide comment before you could get out and address it. There are imminent hazard situations where if there was a school and there was high levels of stuff in the ground right at the surface, cyanide, you need to get out there and address it immediately. So that is what that clause is, and it's right out of DEP's requirements, is that they want to be able to say that they could reduce something so that you can act on it very quickly. So that the public's not put at risk.
But you see right now today, there's no immediate need. So you don't anticipate that happening.
That language is right out of DEP's requirements. That's why.
Well, that's not what I'm asking about that. I'm asking you about you as an LSP.
Right.
Do you see an immediate need, something that needs to be performed immediately right now?
It's a response I will put together later. And, you know,
Okay, now, we got the idea that the public involvement plan in this final will be done sometime in January. But I think what most people here, and me particularly, I'm interested in actually what you're gonna do, your remedial action. When will the remedial action plan be presented and be available for review? What do you anticipate?
That's a future document, and we actually add to the milestones, we add to the reports, the public meetings, all of that gets detailed in future meetings.
Okay, what if you put out your remedial action plan? We comment on it, and then you don't accept our comments. What is our recourse?
Good question. I'll put it in the responses.
No satisfaction. No satisfaction.
Such a shame.
Ridiculous. Why can't you answer that question right now?
Wendy wants to know, why can't you answer that question right now?
Why can't you answer the recourse?
Because this is not again, a me against you. This is taking comments, taking questions, and then providing responses. It is what the DEP requires, it is what the regulations require. It's not about, getting up and me providing a response. So we're trying to do what the regulations require so that even the people that couldn't come to this meeting will have the responses that everybody else has.
I was asking you what the regulations require on parts to the remedial action plan. What do the regulations require as to if we don't agree that you address our comments?
And I have to put that stuff in writing.
How come you can answer?
Can't you do both?
No, because DEP wants to see
I'm
the
asking you a
responses.
process question.
I'm gonna take one more question, and then I think we're just gonna close tonight.
Who's taking
Well,
more questions?
Yeah, there's only a couple more.
Raise your hand if you're taking
This
questions.
one's gonna be, I'm just relating it to my workplace. A couple points first, 7 PM, I will propose a 7 PM time for the next meetings, because I think that gives everybody time to get home.
Thank you.
Maybe grab something and then get here, like I'm here with my 10-year-olds, we brought chess and a card game, made it work, not everybody can do that. Definitely I make a second, third request for the Tufts Library to be a repository place. I would request, please, as I'm sure these questions will have to be taken down and transcribed into some sort of document that's easily copy, paste. But all of the comments have to be somewhere. I would request, please, that we could see a spreadsheet or a list of the comments in their original form. Because I know from my workplace, we get feedback on the websites that we design in-house, and we get user experience back. Sometimes, two people can seem to be saying the same thing, but they're really not, and the difference is in maybe a couple of words and the details. Being able to see, even though it would be easier for me if the business analyst put everything together and summarized and gave me 5 questions instead of 50, I want to see the original questions. I would like to put a request in to see the original, a list.
Are you ready to provide actual questions?
Well, any of the questions that you can pull out from what happened.
People are taking notes, but I
Yes.
would say if you have specific questions and you have specific concerns, put them in writing, send them by mail.
No, that's what I'm saying, like, once you guys get all that, the feedback and the input, and you process that information and all that data, I'm assuming that has to go somewhere. It has to be recorded digitally somewhere, somehow. And then you, from what I understand, you summarize, questions seem similar. What I'm saying is, you're gonna do the summarizing, that's great, but those initial questions, I would like to see a list of the initial questions. Thank you. And in terms of communication, people that know me in town here know that I use social media a lot to let people know about stuff. And some people here maybe even saw me posting all over the place that there's this meeting tonight. So I'm looking at most of these meetings that I've been to, the Spectra meetings, the whatever, these meetings. It's about intention, and what is your intention? Is your intention to get as many people as you can to have an educated response to what you're proposing, or is your intention to kind of hide it and bury it? I mean, if you're having a party, you would make, very basically, every effort to get people to come, or if I was having, you know, a work meeting or whatever, you would make sure that everybody knew, one way or the other. And just following the minimum of, you know, what the DEP requires, it isn't good enough. And there are so many other ways that you can use technology in order to reach people. And I guess it just goes back to what's the intent? Is the intent to confuse people or make it difficult for people, not you, your company that you work for, or whatever? Or is it the intent to get these seats filled, to have a great conversation, to get great feedback, and you can really hear our concerns once we are more focused on what this meeting is about? Because actually I think that presentation got us all completely off on the wrong track as well, thinking, oh, we're going to be able to talk about the pollution, we're going to be able to talk about, you know, all these other things. Which it wasn't, it was about this, and this was not what you presented, so that was kind of confusing for me. I think that's pretty much it. Other than having to mail everything, can you take emails and email things, like responses, so that you're not wasting, you know, paper, stamps, all that stuff? Is there any kind of way that this can be more streamlined electronically? That's my last one. Great, thank you.
Hi there, I have a couple of questions directly related to public involvement. I would like to request or ask why, I guess this has to be in the form of a question, that the Braintree Forum also received notifications, the Weymouth News also received notifications, the Quincy Sun also received notifications, and I would also like to ask if this is about improving public involvement, that there's someone videotaping tonight, but that future meetings, that maybe you could also arrange that there be someone to video, and the video be shared with the Weymouth, Quincy, and Braintree cable stations.
I actually don't know whose video, it's not us.
Is that something that, to increase public involvement, that you guys could provide? I would also like to ask, since this doesn't just affect Weymouth, and that there's land on the site belonging to the city of Quincy, that there should also be, I guess, a duplicate repository at the Thomas Crane Library on Hancock Street in Quincy, and the Thayer Library in Braintree.
Hingham Library too.
And the Hingham Library as well. Another piece that has always concerned me, originally being a Quincy resident, now a Weymouth resident, and Quincy being directly affected, also having land on that site and being part of the half-mile radius, that you either provide transportation or hold parallel meetings in the city of Quincy. The area, the residents that are most directly affected in Quincy all live in federal housing, low-income housing, elderly, disabled, mixed-use housing. At a previous, I think it was a scoping meeting, city councilor from Quincy, Ward 1, arranged for some transportation of some of those residents over to Weymouth, but those residents haven't had a chance to attend anything otherwise. These aren't residents that can necessarily travel easily. The one meeting that was ever held in Quincy that I'm aware of was actually not on a public transportation line. So what would be
This is for the MCP site, so this is not about for the compressor, it's about the contamination. So-
right, but if this plan is to how to increase public involvement,
So it's concerns that the
The
residents of
residents-
Quincy, for the contamination that's in Weymouth?
Quincy owns part of that site. So they are, those residents, specifically those residents, we want to be very, their health and safety is going to be most directly impacted, and they're at the least ability to actually attend any of these meetings. So I guess my question is, why can't we have parallel meetings that would serve their needs? Also in Quincy, probably you've found a school, I would suggest the Snug Harbor Community School on Palmer Street in Quincy, because that, for all of those residents, would be an accessible site. And if you did it at 7 o'clock, that would be a time that residents there would actually be able to attend and have their voices heard. And they could also hear some of the scientific information that you'll be presenting later on.
Great.
Thank you.
Robert?
Hi, my name is Donna Dunick, and I am also a licensed professional. I am an RN with a BSN, and when a PT has an MI, usually they get a cath and they look for 3DD or in the RCA or the LAD or the right circ. And for you may need an
Is an MCP
IADT
question there?
if your EF is low and you might have to titrate, NTG and Lido. So when the purpose of this is to supposedly communicate to people, we all have our own language that we develop through our professions. And when talking to other people, you need to talk to them, not at them, with acronyms and abbreviations. You probably didn't understand a word of what I said, but if you were one of my patients and I talked to you like that, it's almost like bordering on talking over people's heads to make yourself look good. And it's almost kind of arrogant because we don't know your language. So you need to talk to us in our language that we can commonly understand. And I think that should be written in your next,
Last one.
Yep, Linda D'Angelo again. I have a question about this entire process.
Okay.
Now, I know you're looking at, contamination levels and so forth. I personally think the site is a tier 1A. I am familiar with this information, but this site's been ignored for years. This is a tip of the iceberg of what's going on down there, number one. And as I said earlier, it's inadequately being assessed. And not honestly being assessed. So that's the first concern. The second thing is, because this is a major problem for the whole region, and we talked about
The contamination?
the contamination, the health risk, the public safety risk, this goes on. Now, we have all known friends and relatives that have worked down at the old Quincy shipyard. A generation of men and women that built ships and helped defend our country through wartime. They risked their lives. A lot of these people ended up with cancers. Many of us know these people. Okay, we're done with that. We're all done with that. Unfortunately, okay, because this kind of contamination exists, and now we have another risk to our community to disturb those soils again, to present a public safety risk to us again. There is an overwhelming concern that this whole problem is not just about environment, even though that's a huge part of it. How does this information actually get used to really help protect the community? We've got a wonderful health director here in Weymouth. I know he has expressed his concerns to me on other projects. I'm sure we're all aware of the work that he's doing. But, we're looking at something that's much bigger than whether just the compressor station should go there, because it's going to be generations and generations affected. So when we take into the whole big picture, we're looking at kids that live in the Fore River community, okay? They're getting cancer at 17, And there's no genetic reason for them to be getting that cancer according to the studies that that person just had. The doctors now think this is an environmental problem. When you've got 2 children in one family that are getting cancer and they live a stone's throw from Fore River, okay, these are millennial kids. They didn't have to work in the shipyard, but they happen to live in the neighborhood. We want to understand how your information is being coordinated for public health and public safety, because this is a very narrow scope, and that better go into those comments.
It's a concern that we.
It's a big concern, and it's a damn shame that Mass DEP didn't show up here tonight, that all the information, the rocks that are in that soil, this is a really small lens that this problem's being looked at. And we're gonna risk the harbor again and everybody's future. So we're not satisfied. And I know the public, involvement plan. I know the process. We're not even beginning to scratch the process. And I think it should also be put that we have nowhere near the time to examine the information because it's incomplete. 120 days and then you're gonna look at Chris, this is ridiculous. So something else better happen. Thank you.
Excuse me, I know that you're done, but I would just like to, there seems to be some confusion, so I'd like to just make sure we're all on the same page. So you worked for Enbridge, your company, TRC,
I'm
correct?
taking MCP class.
Right, no,
Contamination
I know, but people
questions.
have misinformation, and I want to just make sure it's correct. You are now, TRC has now been hired by who to do the PIP process?
We work for Enbridge.
You do, so you don't work for the DEP?
No, TRC does not work for the DEP.
Okay, so everyone's clear then? She's on